All right, let's talk about something that's been flying under the radar for years, until now, uranium. Yeah, for ages, it was basically the forgotten commodity, but all of a sudden, it is back. And it's not just coming back quietly, it's creating what you could call a perfect storm in the energy markets. So, what in the world is going on here?
Okay, so to get a real feel for just how fast this whole thing is moving, you only have to look at one company, Cameco. They're one of the biggest uranium producers on the planet. And get this, their stock shot up an unbelievable 99% in a single year. I mean, think about that. A move like that, it doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It's a huge flashing sign that a massive fundamental change is happening under the surface.
And that really brings us to the big question we're tackling today. What is actually driving this nuclear comeback, this renaissance, if you will? It's not just one thing, it's this powerful mix of different forces all coming together at once. So let's break it all down.
So, the first piece of this whole puzzle, it's a classic economic story, really. Supply and demand. But there's a pretty dramatic twist. With uranium, we're not just talking about a market that's a little tight. No, we are talking about a deep structural supply deficit that's been building for decades. And that's creating some serious geopolitical headaches, especially for Western nations that depend on imports from places like Kazakhstan and Russia.
And this chart right here, it just lays the whole problem out perfectly. You see that huge gap between what reactors demand and what's actually being mined? That right there, that's the core of the whole issue. The forecast is that what we're pulling out of the ground could soon cover less than 3/4 of what the world's reactors need just to keep running. That's a serious shortfall. And this is brilliant because it shows this isn't some brand new crisis that popped up overnight. Mine production actually started falling behind demand way back in 1991. For years, the world kind of patched over the problem using old stockpiles, stuff from decommissioned warheads. But those stockpiles are getting thin. And now experts are all pointing to 2026 as the year this long-simmering problem could blow up into a major, undeniable deficit. So you're probably thinking, okay, why not just, mine more? Well, it comes down to a really simple truth, and I love how Justin Hun from Uranium Insider puts it. Mining is hard. It really is that simple, and we're seeing this play out right now. Even a giant, a behemoth like Cameco, has been hitting snags, production setbacks, delays at their huge McArthur River mine. You can't just flip a switch. Ramping up supply takes years, it takes billions of dollars, and a ton of technical skill. Okay, now let's flip to the other side of this equation, which is demand. And what we're seeing is, well, it's an explosion. We're not just talking about keeping the lights on anymore. We are talking about powering an entirely new technological age.
And this is being fueled by a bunch of different revolutions all happening at the same time. You've got the absolutely insatiable appetite for energy from AI data centers. You've got countries deciding to extend the lives of their old reactors. You've got ambitious plans for brand new ones, the huge shift to EVs. And on top of it all, these massive clean energy goals. I mean, each one of those is a huge driver on its own. Put them all together, you've got a supercycle.
And let's just put a number on that to see how big it is. Forecasts are suggesting that by 2040, the yearly demand for uranium from reactors could hit 130,000 metric tons. That's nearly double the demand from just a few years ago. The world is plugging in like we've never seen before. And this really gets to the heart of why nuclear is so crucial right now. As Lobo Tegri points out, its main job is providing baseload power. That's the steady, reliable 24/7 juice that our modern world absolutely depends on. It's not like solar or wind that come and go. For a world that's building giant data centers and trying to electrify everything, there really is no substitute. So you've got this powerful situation, right? A supply crunch on one side and a demand boom on the other. The next logical question is, how could you invest in this story as it unfolds? Let's take a look at some of the key players out there. So you can think of it in two broad ways. On one hand, you've got the established uranium miners. These guys have actual assets in the ground, they have real revenue coming in, and they're busy signing long-term supply contracts. On the other hand, you have these futuristic reactor startups. They're often pre-revenue, highly speculative, and they're betting on next-generation tech that, well, it hasn't really been proven commercially just yet. Now, if we drill down a little deeper, we can see who's who. First, you've got the giant, Cameco. They're a Canadian powerhouse sitting on some of the biggest and best uranium mines in the world. Then you've got really important domestic producers like Uranium Energy Corp. They're interesting because they have the largest licensed production capacity right here in the US, which is a huge deal if there's a big push for energy independence. Then you get into the specialists, like Centrus Energy. They're the only licensed producer in the West of something called HALEU fuel. That's the high-tech fuel a lot of next-gen reactors are going to need. And of course, if you just want to play the whole sector, there are ETFs like URA, which basically bundles a bunch of these companies together for you.
Okay, so where is all this headed? Well, from everything we're seeing, all signs are pointing to the very near future, specifically the year 2026, as being a potentially massive turning point for this entire industry.
This slide really sums up what a lot of people are thinking, and a few things just jump right out. Analysts are expecting this perfect storm of events. Uranium prices possibly breaking into triple digits, that supply deficit becoming completely impossible to ignore, and the first wave of those new small modular reactors hitting major commercial milestones. It's like every single trend we've talked about is set to converge.
And it's not just speculation. We've got major institutions putting some hard numbers on this. Citi Research, for instance, is forecasting that uranium prices could hit $100 per pound by the end of 2026. Now, that is a significant jump from where we are today, and it just shows you the growing belief in how unbalanced this market really is.
But hey, let's be real. No investment idea is a guaranteed home run. So before we wrap this up, we have to talk about the potential risks and the other side of this coin.
So there are definitely a few things you've got to keep an eye on. If the AI bubble were to pop, it could cause panic selling in anything even remotely tied to that story, and that includes uranium. Also, some of these stocks have had massive runs already, which means their valuations are looking a little stretched. Those mining delays we talked about, that's a real persistent risk. And finally, there's always the chance that the big utilities just keep dragging their feet on signing the huge long-term contracts that are needed to really light a fire under this market.
So, when you strip it all away, you're left with this one big question, right? Is this whole nuclear comeback just a temporary, speculative bubble that's being pumped up by all the AI hype? Or are we witnessing the real fundamental reawakening of what might just be the bedrock of our global energy future? Honestly, the answer to that is probably going to define one of the most compelling resource stories of the decade.